Hello, it's Deborah from the Attic, and today I have the latest release from Simon Says Stamp, and this one is gorgeous. It's the 2019 December kit, and it's called Gnome for the Holidays. Let me show you first of all the die cut and these little wobblers. This is a wafer thin die, and it's called Little Gnome, and there are 3 of these mini action wobbles. I'm going to just pop them out of the packet to give you a look at how much flexibility and bounciness there is on these. They have a nice spring, a nice bit of give. As always, the lollipop is mine, and that gets hidden immediately in the top drawer of my desk. And the stamp that comes with this set today is called Gnome for the Holidays, and it's 6 inches by 8 inches, and there are loads of pictures and images and snowflakes and really useful festive greetings on these. And these parcels, these little piles of parcels, I think they're just lovely. And the next thing I want to show you is this stencil. I've popped it out of its packaging and just rested it against the brown bag so you can get a better idea of what those images look like. And because we have a stencil, it's very useful that we also have a blending brush. I'm looking forward to using this because this isn't a foam applicator. This is a brush that has loads and loads of very densely packed hairs, so it makes for a good solid applicator. This is going to be great fun to use. This is a lovely piece of 6x6 light silver shimmer cardstock. The 6x6 pad is double-sided, and I absolutely love the colours of this. They're black, red and white, and there are some really nice big patterns in there that we can use as toppers for cards to make really quick cards. And I think that's quite important at this time of year. If you feel under pressure to make cards, I'm going to show you some that are really just very quick to do. And of course, I love this tartan, and I really like these little characters. It's a really useful pad. It's got a mixture of plain backgrounds, small pattern backgrounds, and then these sorts of toppers that will help you with your fast Christmas makes. The cardstock is white, black and schoolhouse red, and there are 3 envelopes to coordinate with those colours as well. I want to show you how I've cut down a couple of the sheets from the cardstock. I've separated out the borders or the banners that you can see below, and then 2 of the pictures, and this one I haven't split in half because I want to use this as a little book. So I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this. So I've taken a little bit more care and I have properly folded this using my bone folder. I've got a piece of the white cardstock which I've cut down to be 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and I found a ribbon from my stash which is red with white spots and coordinates really nicely with the kit. I want to do something to jazz up that plain white background, so I've got some Distress Oxide Festive Berries ink, and I've also got some of the little snowflakes ready on my acrylic block. I'm going to ink up the stamps and then I'm going to scatter them randomly around the outside edges of this card. I don't need to worry about the middle of the card because that will be covered by the mini card that I've just made. I've covered as much of the background as I want with a mixture of the 3 smallest snowflakes, and I'm happy with that background now. I'm going to bring back in the folded card from earlier, and as you can see it sits really nicely in the middle of all that lovely gorgeous snowflakiness around the outside. And if I open the ribbon up again and show you the inside, you can see just how nice that will be to help somebody count down to Christmas Day. Here's a tip if you want to make a lot of batch cards. Stamp up any sentiments that you want to use. If you're going to heat set them, stamp them out, heat set them first, and then they're all ready to cut up and go when you're making your cards. And this is how I got a head start when I was making this card using the little Santa topper. I've added the sentiment to the top, and now I can glue this down onto a plain black base. This is a piece of card that I cut from the cardstock in the kit. Now I can glue down the piece of card that's almost like a ribbon at the bottom of those designs, and I can stick that in place on my card just across the bottom but leaving a little black border. And I use my scissors to cut away the excess, and then as you can see I've got one of the pre-embossed sentiments ready, and all I need to do is glue that across the centre bottom of the card. If you received the previous kit, you might want to grab the little red fluffy balls that were included in that kit because they're going to make some very useful embellishments. And our card is done. For my third card, I want to use the wafer thin die with the little Santa. I've got some white and black card. This isn't actually from the kit. This is some waste card that I had that I will use up. I've also taken one of the 6x6 pieces of paper from the paper pack, and I'm going to use the red side of that. I'm going to use the wafer die on each of these colours. And once it's been through my Sizzix die cutting machine, I want to show you just how good this die is. It separates, the way it's designed is it can separate all of those little pieces, and that's just what we want to be able to do to construct the card. Next, I'm going to take my little pieces, I'm going to put them to one side, and I'm going to take my piece of black cardstock and I'm going to run the frame or the sort of outer die of the Santa through my die cut. And that's the background prepared. So to make up my Santa, I'm going to stick the pieces that I want to use onto the black background. And I've decided to go with a red body, a white beard, a white hat, and a red nose. And there he is, all glued down, looking super duper cute. The next thing I'm going to do is get one of the little mini wobblers and I'm going to attach it to the reverse of my Santa. These have got sticky backgrounds, so all you need to do is remove the protective piece of paper and you can glue it onto whatever you want. Let me just see if I can turn this over and show you how much springiness there is in that mini wobbler. Boing boing. I do my own sound effects as well. And I know that many of you do as well because you've told me. But isn't that Santa so cute? Eventually he's going to find a home on the front of this piece of card, which is cut from the cardstock in the kit, but for the moment I want to add some background. I've got some clear embossing ink and I'm inking up some of the trees and one of the sentiments. I've already positioned these on my block in such a way that they will sit exactly where I want them to on my card. So I'm going to stamp these and then I'm going to throw some white embossing powder over them and then I'm going to heat set it. I want to show you the heat setting because it doesn't seem to matter how carefully you use your heat tool or how hot you have it before you start. It is very difficult to stop card buckling. And I think it's important to know that it's not you that's at fault, it's not your technique that's at fault. This is just the impact that heat has on fibres in a card. The best way that I've found is to get my heat gun as hot as I can make it go until it gets to the ouch stage on my hand, and then I've worked down onto a piece of thick board so that it will protect my mat and it won't damage my desk underneath. I use my heat gun vertically. I aim it directly down onto whatever it is that I want to emboss, and although this won't stop the card buckling, it does minimise the damage done. You can further minimise any damage by using an instant tack adhesive glue runner to attach the card that you've embossed and heated onto a background card. That will give it greater stability. Finally, I'm going to take my little character, I'm going to remove the protective paper from the wobbler on the back and I'm going to glue him down. And I'm going to do some quality control and just make sure that the wobble wobbles. And it does. And it's brilliant fun. I absolutely love this effect. And our card is finished. For our next card, we're going to use the stencil and the blending brush. The element from the stencil I want to use is the piece of mistletoe at the top here, but to help us position it on our card, we're going to use the three little berry dots in the centre. The ink pad I'm using is a Versacolour called Bamboo, and I'm just going to pop the lid off and I'm going to very lightly tap onto the brush and just very, very lightly go over the three small dots with the green ink. We're going to colour these in the correct shade later, but for the moment we just need a very subtle marker to help us begin. The mistletoe branches are very close to the little holes that make the berries, so I'm going to cover those holes over with a tiny piece of washi tape to make sure I don't accidentally press ink through that part of the stencil and spoil the rest of the image. Now I'm going to line up the mistletoe branch so that it points towards the centre of the three berries, and I'm going to take my blending brush, dip it into my ink, and very softly I'm going to stroke it towards the centre of the image. That's because there are tiny little pieces of plastic pointing in that direction, and I want my brush to follow the direction of the plastic so that I don't risk putting it out of position. Keep working your way around the design until you're happy with the size of it. I'm actually going to do 2 rows of the mistletoe branches, and I'm also going to allow the design to run off the edges, run off the corner of the top of the card. My design is complete. I'm happy with the spread of those mistletoe branches. I want to add a very simple greeting in the bottom of the card. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut down a couple of the sentiments so that they will fit on my block in the way that I want. I'm just going to check it on a piece of waste paper to make sure I've lined it on my block straight. Don't be scared to cut down your sentiments. You can always put them back together the same way afterwards so that they are as they were originally sent to you. I've just used plain black ink to stamp my sentiment, and I have a red pencil to colour in the berries. I want to add a little extra to this card, so I'm using a clear glitter gloss pen to add a little bit of sparkle to each of the leaves on my branch of mistletoe. The effect is really very pretty and soft, but it's quite difficult to show you. I hope you can pick up maybe a little of the shimmer, and you can mount that onto a piece of matching background if you want, or leave it plain. We're going to do some blending for our next card. I've protected my mat with some waste yellow paper underneath. I'm sorry it's such a horrible colour. And I've got another little scrap that I'm cutting a curved shape from. This is going to form a hill, and I'm going to use my blending brush and some Versacolour ink in this nice soft sort of lavender shade to create my colour. I've turned my sheet vertically because it's a little more easy to work like this because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, turn it the other way. Use your mask to protect the area of your card where you don't want any ink to go, and then gently blend colour onto the lower section of your card. Move your mask, adjust it slightly, maybe put it at an angle so it looks a little bit differently, and then apply more ink. When you're happy with your background, move the mask in such a way that it covers the area you've already applied ink to. I've got my two little characters prepared on a stamp block, and I'm going to use a plain black Versacolour ink to ink them up. With your mask still in place, you want to position the characters in such a way that it appears as if they're not standing directly on top of the hill or above the hill, but their feet are just ever so slightly below the tip of the hill. This gives the impression that they're walking over the hill towards you. I'm going to stamp my characters again using plain black ink, but this time I only want the bodies and the hats. I don't need the limbs. I've coloured these in, and now I'm going to cut around just the bodies and the hats. The reason for doing this and for adding an extra stamping, colouring and cutting process is because when you've stamped a background like we have, and then you stamp another image on top of it intending to colour it in, the ink below can impact on the colour of your character on top. This way it makes it much cleaner. When I'm ready, all I need to do is glue these bodies onto the bodies below. I want to add a little bit more colour to the top of this. Now, my colour ended up being very, very faint. I just went around the outside applying it with the brush, which is beautiful to use, by the way, and it gives you a really lovely smooth finish. If I was doing the card again, I would make that background darker. I can glue the bodies onto the bases below. The other thing that's nice about doing it this way is it gives it extra dimension. I'm going to add a little bit of black colouring to the limbs. I've also coloured and cut out these lovely little parcel stamps. I'm going to use them to just create a little scene around my characters. If you go ahead and decide to cut out the parcels in the way that I have, don't worry about cutting out the ribbons, just use a black pen to ink them in afterwards. I'm going to add a sentiment on the bottom of the card in plain black ink. I like the way the soft colour of the ink has given my card such a wintry feel, but I think there's more I can do to add a little bit of sparkle to this. I'm going to use a glue pen to add lots of dots all around the outside of my characters, and then I'm going to cover them with glitter, and the glue dots will pick up the glitter and it will look like shimmery snow falling from the clouds. It's very difficult to show you on camera, but maybe you can see a bit of a shimmer. For card 6, I've returned to the die cut, and I've cut out more of these little Santas, but this time I've cut out just the head. I wanted to show you how I'd done this. The black matte die obviously doesn't cut out the beard shape, so I just wanted to show you that I'd stuck the Santa on the top of the black shape and then just cut around the beard with some scissors. I've used one of the pieces of paper from the paper set to go across the bottom, and I'm going to position my 3 little Santa heads across the top of my card. I'm also going to use the little red balls for the noses, and I've also taken a sentiment that says Gnome Sweet Gnome. I've put this onto black card, inked it in white embossing powder, and I'm going to glue everything down. But I have some special treatment for the central little head there, and I'm going to give it one of the wobblers. I've really enjoyed using these. They make such an impact on a card, and when they're squashed down flat they can go in an envelope without any difficulty at all. They've been really, really fun. I also like that if you're using a wobbler, it doesn't matter if you do something on the wonk, it looks like it's meant to be. Our next card is going to be quick and simple in contrast to the earlier ones. I've taken 2 of the sheets of paper from the paper pack. I've cut down one of the ones that looks like a topper that says happy ho 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 to you, and I've taken another piece of card which I've cut down to be a standard background card size 4¼ by 5½ inches ish, and then I've cut down another of the pieces of paper that has got the double-sided on it, so that way I'm getting the maximum I can out of one single sheet of paper. All I'm going to do is glue these together, and I rather like the red strip being set to one side rather than going down the middle. It just makes the card a little bit more visually interesting. And of course, if you do have the little red pom-poms from the previous card kit, you could stick one of those at the bottom of this card topper. And our card is finished. Now we only have one more card to go. I'm going to be dropping back down to 8 cards from one kit in the hope that dropping by 2 cards will help me with my time management. I've cut down one of the background pieces of paper from the pack into a card size which is 5½ by 4¼ I've also taken another piece of paper which I've cut down small enough to fit onto a sort of a tag size black background, and I have my ho 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 which I've stamped and embossed using white embossing powder. I'm going to cut off the corners of this red piece of card to make a tag. If you want to make sure that you're going to get both of your corners the same size, roughly, it's a good idea to snip one corner off, then reverse it, put it over the corner that you haven't yet cut, and use it as a template to make sure you get roughly a similar finish. I'm going to glue my red tag-shaped piece of paper down onto the black rectangle of card beneath, and then I'm going to snip the corners of the black card to match the red piece on top. I want to make my ho 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 stand out a little bit, so I'm going to use this black craft foam. This is only about 2mm, 3mm thick, but it will give a nice bit of definition and interest to my tag. I'm gluing all of the pieces together so that the ho 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 will sit on top of my craft foam, and that will get glued to sit on my tag. If you have a crocodile or a means of setting an eyelet, it's a nice finish to put an eyelet in the top of your tag. I'm going to use the smallest setting in my crocodile, and then I'm going to fit in this silver eyelet. I think that makes my tag look very smart. I'm going to add some raffia that I found in the back of a box. You could also use a matching ribbon or some thread if you prefer. I want something to go through the top of the eyelet and make this look complete. All that remains for me to do now is to glue the reverse of my tag and stick it onto my card background. I'm going to put this at a slight angle, and then where I have raffia popping out at the top, I'm just going to cut that free. Of course, if you've chosen to use a ribbon, you might want to tie that into a bow. I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. Thank you for watching. As always, I'm going to leave you with some close-ups of all of the cards that we've made today, along with a little music. And until we meet again, take care.